Hmm.
Okay, good evening. We're up to where we're up to Yud Zion Amid Beis. Yud Zion Amid Beis. We're up about three lines up. Um, a little more than that. Yeah. Three. Rav Huna Bakatina. Yeah, three lines up. Rav Huna. So at Yud Zion Amid Beis. Rav Huna Bakatina. Rab Shimon ben Lakish. Shalish Pegimai saying there are three pegimais. There are three halachas in pegimais in blemishes. Etzem bepesach, pegimas etzem bepesach. That if you poigim the etzem bepesach, you be over on the issue of if etzem leisishbru boy. In other words, what's considered shvira? So pegima is considered shvira. If you're on the level of pegima, that's considered shvira. Okay, so you'd be over the issue of breaking a bone on Pesach. Pegimas oizen bebechar. In the Bechar, if you have a Bechar is a Kodesh Merechem, you have to bring it to the base of Migdash as a carbon, right? However, if on the other hand it gets a mum, the Kohen can go ahead and eat it. So if you have a mum in the ear, Pegimus Oizen Bechar, and Pegimus Mum Bikochem. Okay, Rashi speaks out why you need two separate ones. We will go further. But so those are three dinner. Rav Chisda Amar Af Pegimus Sakin, even Pegimus Sakin, which is the reason why we're bringing this in. A sakin that has what is a pegam in it, the idach, and and how come Reish Lakish did not consider this? Chulin like Kamari, because we're speaking about Inyani Kachim. We're not speaking about what? We're not speaking about Chulin. We're speaking about Inyani Kachim. We're not speaking about Chulin. Therefore, you didn't bring in Pegimus Sakin. The Kulam Pegimason Kedei Pegimus Hamizbeach, and all of them, the Pegima is the shear that it would take if the Mizbeach is Poigim, that it's what it's not, you can't bring a carbon. If the Mizbeach is Poigim, you can't bring a carbon. So the shear, all these things, the shear by the Oizen or by the Mum or by the the Etzem, this is the shear wad of the Pegimus Hamizbeach. The Kama Pegimus Hamizbeach says the Gemara on the Amid Aleph, Kidei shetachgur bot sipoirin. That if you run your finger along it, if you run your finger along it, you can have what the sipoirin. Let's see a taste for a second. The Kama Pegimus Hamizbeach they should talk about sipoirin. Taimar the Heich Banu Hamizbeach. How they build a mizbeach? The Ano Yimtsu Avonim B'lei Pegima. How do you go ahead and find an event without a pegima? The miachliku bebarzel, and if you're going to cut it with barzel, iki surah, like son, if you have this isura, you're not allowed to go ahead and you stones, right? Alayim barzel. You can even say the shamer. So this is not shaila. Could you use the shamer to build a mizbeach? And the truth is, it would leave edges too. So if you look, this is the way they created the mizbeach. V'yesh go back, skip down about 7 lines up from the bottom. V'yesh leimar, the perik ezu mekoima mashma shebanu oisam ba'avonim ketanais chalakis. If you ever go when you're in camp, right? The stones that are near the water, they're smooth. They're very smooth. River rocks. They're very smooth. They're close to get to the water. So they would go ahead and put that in a mold, and then they put cement in the mold. So in other words, the mizbeach wasn't a bunch of large stones because you couldn't go ahead and use large stones. So it was made of like you ever see the old cement in front of some people's houses, like a bunch of stones, right? So that was made up, those little stones all together. That was made up. Okay, so back in the Gemara. Meisvei kama begimus hamizbeach. How much is the begimus hamizbeach? Reb Shimon Yochayim tefach. Reb Lesman Yaakov Kazayas. So you're telling me that what? It's when you run your fingernail along, that's the shir begimus mizbeach. One says it's kazayas, the other one says what? It's a tefach. Says Malay Kasha. This is why I did the Taisvis. Ha besida ha bavana. Since the mizbeach was made up of two components, it was made up of stones, and in addition, it was made up out of sid, of lime, of cement. So if it's a shear in the cement, that's the shear of a tefach. That's the shear out of a kazayas. If the break is mad in the stone, that's pegimas atziporin. Amrav Huna says of Huna. Hai tafcha de loisor sakina kamechacham. We saw the other day that the cover the Rav, you'd have to go ahead and bring what? Bring the sakin to show him to him, the cover the Rav. You bring a sakin to go ahead and show him to marry the sakin. So let's say a person goes ahead and he didn't show the sakin kamei chacham mishamtinan le. You put him in chayrim, which fits in very geschmack. A person is mevasa talmud chacham. The halacha is you put him in chayrim. So it makes sense over here also. If he goes ahead and he's going to show it to a not show it to the chacham, and the whole reason to show it to the chacham is because the kavod. So memela you mevasa the chacham by not showing it to him. You mevasa the chacham by not showing it to him. As a result, what? As a result, you're going to go ahead and be in chayrim. The Rabbi Amar ma'avirin loy. You go ahead and take him down. Umachrizinon abisrei the trefihi, and you go ahead and you call out that any basa from him is treifa. This is very very severe. V'loi pligi, and they don't argue. Kam b'shenimsa sakinu yafa. Kam b'shaloi nimsa sakinu yafa. In other words, he doesn't show it to the Rav. It turns out to be what? Okay. Then you put him in chayrim. If he doesn't show it to the Rav and it shows not okay, then we machriz that what? It's a treifa. Ravina amar heched loy nimsa sakinu yafa. Ravina says even more severe. Not only a treifa, but if you find that his sakin is not what it should be, memas mislei pirsa. They would go ahead and smear it with excrement. They would smear it with soya. Why? In other words, if you have a treifa, you could sell it to a guy. You can still have enough from it. So what they do is, Ravina said, you make it so mias that even a guy wouldn't even want it. So therefore, that's a person who's does not show his knife to the chacham. Hahu tabacha. There was this tabacha, this shaychit. The loisar sakina kamei the Rava bar Chinina. He did not show his sakin to Rava bar Chinina. Shamte, they put him in chayrim. V'avrei, and they took him down. V'achriz abisra the treifa. So in other words, they took him down and they were machriz the treifa. Treifa. Ikloi mar zutra of Rav Chia. Now, so who was the names count over here, guys? Who's the name is Rava bar Chinina. Shows up Ikla mar zutra of Ashi Lagabei. They show up into the town of Rav bar Chinina. Amaluhu, so Rava bar Chinina said to Rav Ashi and to Mazutra, La'ainu, go ahead, what? Rabbi Milsa. Go ahead and look into this man, Rabbanon ben Milsa. La'ainu Rabbanon ben Milsa. Go ahead, check this guy out. Right? Go ahead, what? Check it out. The Tolibe Tafle, because the Tolibe Tafle, his parnasa depends upon it. Rashi brings, he had children. Look at Rashi, guys. Says Rashi, Tafle bonim. He had bonim, following kids, katanim, tuluyim alav, dependent upon him, lazain for parnasa. But sorach lish daker, Tafle is targum shel taf. Taf is lashon of taf. It's a lashon of child. So it's amazing that even though he was pagay in the cover of Rabbi Bar Chinina, nonetheless, Rabbi Bar Chinina was worried about him and his parnasa. So he told Rav Ashi and Mazuch to look into this. So Botka Rav Ashi the sakin. So he checked the sakin of this tabach. V'nimsas yofa, and he found the water was fine. V'yachsherei, and he machshed it. Only Mazuch of Leicheshma l'saba. So incredulously, Mazuch said, "Why aren't you worried about the cover of Rabbi Bar Chinina that he didn't show him the knife?" Amalek, so Rav Ashi told him, "What am I supposed to do? Shlichus ekavdinin. I did a shlichus. He told me to look into it, right? So I did what I was supposed to do. Guys, good. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna, bar Rav Huna. Rav, put the word Rav in there. Shane Telusha, disattached Shane. If it's Sipoirin Telusha and a disattached nail, Muta Lishkepa, Lechatchila. You'll be able to go ahead Lechatchila and shech with it, provided again that it's smooth, it doesn't have a pagam in it, and as long as again we learned that you can't shech with mechuber, it has to be batalish, you could use it. Now, Mishnah said, "Chutz mi magal ktsir." The magal ktsir is the worker's tool. The worker's sickle. The hamagera and the saw vashinayim and teeth vatzipoirin. If neishem choinkim. So how can you go ahead? How can Rabbi Huna go argue on a Mishnah? And he's saying that what you could shech with a shein. Here we see you can't. It says one shein lekasha habechada habetarti. One shein, guys, is not a problem. Two is. In other words, what did the Mishnah say? It said lashon of shinayim. What's the problem with shinayim? Because it has like a separation in between, so it's going to get stuck. But if you have one shein, as long as it's sharp, then you're able to do it. So therefore, shein lekasha habechada habetarti. Tziporin Lekasha, Habetlusha, Habemechuberes. When that Rabbah by Rav Huna permitted it was only when it was disconnected, but it was connected, then we said that it's not to be done. Mechuber is not to be done. Says the Mishnah, Shoichi b'machal katsir, this is the sickle of a worker, b'derech halichasa b'shamai poislin. Now it seems that it doesn't have a up and down. We have it right over here, guys. Look at page Lamed Daled. If you look on page Lamed Daled, picture number 85A. If you don't have it in front of you, guys, here's, at least on the screen, this is it. You look at the teeth. You see the teeth? The teeth are curved in. It's not on the phone. It's not on the phone. The teeth are curved in. In other words, it's not serrated like this. It's like serrated like this. So if you go this way, the you don't have to worry about catching along, right? If you're going to go in that direction, yeah, it doesn't hit. So therefore, Beis Shammai says, nonetheless, it's possible. If you go ahead and remove the teeth by what's the word when you not carving? What do you do when you whittling? No, when you sharpen down, you sand it down. When you sand down the blade, right? And what? Wedding? Okay, what is wedding for 50? Right. So you go ahead. Right? It's a one-man mind. Anyway, so you're going to go ahead and you're going to remove that. Then it'll be okay. In other words, he wants to say he didn't mean that you'd eat it. He means, but midrabanan, it would not be nevela, but you wouldn't be able to eat it. Aval be'achila asura, but to eat it will be asa. Amar Avashi taken ami diktani beishamai paislin beisolam machshirin, v'lekatani beishamai oisrin beisolam matirin. Matirin's mashma that is shrimutta completely. So you just in machshirin that is not nevela. L'tameich listening beishamai mitamoyin beisolam mitarin. If the whole chiddush is that is not nevela, so it's tahar. You should have learned the lashon mitamin beisolam mitarin. Now paislin machshirin beisolam matirin chadim milsi. What you're saying is not correct, because basically your diak is not a good diak, because what it's you can go ahead and it's interchangeable, saying the word poison machshirin or asur matirin. So that he learned machshirin is not a raya that it doesn't mean that it's not matama. Okay. I think before I'd like to do a little. We're going to spend a few days on the anatomy of a cow. So let's look at the pictures, and you'll be able to give names to it. Okay, you'll be able to give names to it. So you have your sicha stool and everybody. So the first picture. The first general picture from a distance will be on page Lamed Hey. I'm not sure I gave it to you yet. On page Lamed Hey. Look at picture number 86A. So you have a cow, and starting from the lung, all the way to the right is the lung, and we're working our way up. On top that goes up, that's the veshet. The veshet, when the animal's standing, the veshet, the food pipe, is on top, and the windpipe, the trachea, or what we call the kana or the gargeris, is below. The gargeris, as you notice, the veshet is smooth. The gargeris is made up of rings. The gargeris is made up of rings, and the rings ascend until it gets to the mouth. And at that point in time, you can see something called the tabas hagedola and the kaiva. So that's in general. Now, more specific, if you turn the page, you're going to get it on page Lamed Vav. You're going to get a more clearer view of what we're discussing. On page Lamed Vav, you have the David. On page Lamed Vav, you're going to get a more clearer view, because you're going to shech. That's the way you're going to shech. You're going to shech downwards. So now, the starting from the right, that's called that all the way on the right is the covering. It covers it up. And that's called the koiva, literally the helmet. That's called the helmet. And the most important part of tonight's shir is the thing called the tabas hagadol. You see, look at it says tabas gadol shiel yoina lekulan. You see that, guys? You see it's called the big ring. Now, why is it a big ring? Because it is different than the other rings. If you take a look on page Lamed Ches for a second. all the cartilage, I'm not sure, David, I gave this to you. All of the cartilage of the gageres, of the kana, is a horseshoe. It's a horseshoe. And inverted, so look at, you can see you have the horseshoe there. Go to the top picture, it's the inverted horseshoe, and you have a membrane, a piece of buster going down the middle. So this is not a complete ring. The Tabas Gedoyla, guys, is a complete ring, all the way to the left. The Tabas Gedoyla is a complete ring. Good. Therefore, Shechita has to take place bekana. The uppermost part of the kana is the Tabas Gedoyla. We're going to be discussing the Shechita of the Tabas Gedoyla, and you leave that place. One of the 5 Halacha Moshe Misinai's psulim of Shechita is Hagrama, where the Shechita takes place out of bounds. Hagrama, it's out of bounds. That's what we're discussing today. We're discussing Hagrama. We're discussing, it's going to be out, okay? It's going to be out. Now, go back now to page Lamed Vav. The picture, bottom right picture, number 89A. 89A, this is the uppermost part that you could shech, according to the Mishnah. Again, I'm not giving halacha now, guys. This is the uppermost part that you could shech, is in Tabas Gedoyla. And you're leaving over a little bit, you see? Leaving over a koldahu. Okay. Next picture on the left. What happens if you shecht? Even if you get roiv, you see the dotted line? You get roiv in the Tabas Gedoyla, and then you go out of bounds, then you go into the koiva. The Chachamim hold that that's not good. The Chachamim say that's Hagrama. Even though you had roiv, guys, in the Tabasa Gedoyla, once you go, even after roiv, if you go out of bounds, says the Chachamim, that's Hagrama and it's possible. It's not a good shechita. Okay. Rabbi Yossi is going to argue. He says if you get roiv, it's okay. So
if he stopped there, it would have been a shechita.
Again, but it's not pasha. But they hold you have to get roiv of shnaim. I don't know, but he holds that he holds if you get roiv kukula is okay. Okay. I think we have enough to begin. Let's see. Yes, Nassim. Yes.
Hagadol is the same material as the rest, correct?
It's a cartilage, right? It's cartilage, but it's complete. It's a complete circle.
I understand, but it's the same. It's the same thing as the rest of the meshet.
Yeah, I mean it's cartilage. It's obviously a knife can go through it, and Rabbi, that's this is the uppermost part. We don't even discuss the lower part until we'll see Rashi. We'll see a chiddush in Rashi and Rav and Shmuel. Okay, says our Mishnah again. Until you see the Mishnah, you know what's going on. Hashoichim mitoich hatabas. If someone shechs mitoich hatabas, and which tabas are we discussing, guys? Tabas hagedoyla. We're discussing the big ring. V'shayabo moli achut al pnei kula, and you leave over, right? You leave over that little space, right? That's shchita shekachera. It's a kosher shchita. Rabbi Yosef Yehuda Omer moli chut al pnei ruba, right? It's moli chut al pnei ruba. You don't need the whole thing, even as long as you have roiv. As long as you have roiv, you're okay. Okay, there's a lot of Rashis over here, really discussing the anatomy. Really discussing the anatomy. I think you get an idea. I think the picture paints a picture, right? So now, Rabu Shmuel, the Amrit Ravayu, both Rav and Shmuel are of the opinion, Halacha Rabbi Yosef of Yehuda, that is, if you get roiv in the Tabas Gedoyla, even if you leave right after roiv, it's still kasha. And now they qualify the following: the Rabbi Yosef of Yehuda loy Omar ela b'tabas hagedoyla haylu makefes es kol hakana, since it surrounds the whole kana. Aval b'shar b'tabois, in the rest of the tabois of the gageres of the kana, if you shecht loy, if you shecht in the rest of the tabois, then not. Meaning, apparently, what's he saying? Take a look. Page Lamed Zayin, the right side. Guys, the right side. That would not be a good shechita. Even though, guys, you went through the whole thing. Guys, you went through the whole thing. In other words, when did Rabbi Yosef say roiv, right? That's only in the tabas gedola, but in the tabas you can't shecht in the tabas. He holds you cannot. He holds you cannot shecht there. Okay, okay. Page Lamites. Lamites. The picture, all the way on the right. Ein shchitas gshera b'toichan klal. In other words, you can't shecht. If you shecht there, it's not a kosher shchita. You have to shecht between the rings. They were able both. They stretched the neck of the animal out, and they were able to do it. We don't pass like this, okay? But again, yes, of course. We said you have to check. We said if you said
he does this thing.
Hesh, if you don't check, we said that it's not only good. You have to throw it away. We said if you lose it. We said if you lose them. Okay, so now let's see Rashi over here. Let's see Rashi over here. This is a Yisaitistic Rashi. So halacha Rabbi Yossi, the ruba kikula. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi that if you get the majority of the tabas, you're good. Guys, you with me? Doc, you with me?
Yeah.
Now, after Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda lo yamar, that what by the tabas gedola. But now, kloimar afal gav, guys, Rashi, very important. Afal gav del Rabbi Yossi ruba kikula lo yamar shetahei shchitas lekesheroi b'toichat tabas. Ella b'tabas gedola shemakefes is kol hakana. Only the tabas gedola which surrounds, which is a complete circle. Hilka chashiva kana. Fellas, that's called the kana because it surrounds the whole thing. Aval b'shar tabois that don't surround the whole thing, because like a horseshoe, ein shchitase keshera b'seichan klal. Forget about roiv. If you shecht in them, it's not kosher at all. Ela bein tabas to tabas, only between the rings. The kivan sheim akivin is kol akana, kideprecious shebetzuas abasim mechabrasan. Since, like I explained, fellas, right? Since they're not totally covering the kana, they're like this, and it's a piece of meat that's connecting them together, holding them together. Lav kana ninu. It's not the kana. You hear this? Halachically, according to Rav and Shmuel, it's not the kana. Guys, page Lamed Ches. Page Lamed Ches, top picture. Page Lamed Ches, top picture. You have a piece of meat going through like this. You have this, and the piece of meat is going through. He says, since this piece of meat is going through, it's not called the kana. So if you shecht in those rings, that's not the makam shchita. If you shecht in those rings, and Rav and Shmuel are saying that's what Rabbi Yosef Yehuda holds. That's what Rabbi Yosef Yehuda holds. The only thing that's called the kana is between those, or the tabas gedola, or the tabas gedola. So back in Rashi, the afagav the makif and ruba. Now I'll say 1 second. If Rabbi Yosef Yehuda holds that roiv is kakuloi, guys, so good. You don't have a full, complete circle. Why don't we say ruba kakula? You're telling me, Linyan Shchita, if you get the majority of the tabas gedola, we say ruba kakula. So, guys, isn't this roiv of meat, rov of cartilage? Why don't you say it there? Continues Rashi. The chi islay le Rabbi Yossi ruba kakula. When does Rabbi Yossi hold ruba kakula? Hani mili b'mokam shchita. That's in the place of shchita. V'shachad ruba and yeshech roiv b'mokam shchita. L'hol mil samina and ruba kakula. And that'll say ruba kakula. Rashi's so clear and beautiful. Aval l'shavia mokim kosher l'shchita. To use the halacha of ruba kakula to say, to create the mokim of shchita, Mishemai kaima loy amrina ruba kakula. That the bas leikri kana mitkama shemakifin es kol kana. It says it's not makif the whole kana. Shmamina krum shevatechet tabas hamachas loisayim ifnim mikri kana. In other words, Rashi is being Yeraya. How do you know this is not the kana? Because it says it goes ahead and it's surrounding the kana. What's the kana? It's the membrane inside that it's protecting. So Rashi's mechadish beautiful. Rashi's explaining Shitas Rav Shmuel beautifully, guys. Eye contact, beautifully. In order to do shchita, you need to shech the kana and the veshet. We're discussing the shchita of the kana. We're discussing the uppermost part of the shchita of the kana. The uppermost part of the shchita of kana is what? Is the bas gedola. all the way at the top. Why is that the kana? Because it surrounds the whole kana, so therefore it's considered the kana. There will say the lacha ruba kekulai, that according to Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. The rest of this, the half is not the kana. The kana is what is covering, but it's not the kana. I say ruba kekula. Ruba kekula can go ahead in my action say that what I did, roiv, is considered the whole thing. But to go ahead and say if I have a surrounding bone that it should be considered a whole bone covering, that I cannot say. And therefore it can't create a makam shchita. So says Rav and Shmuel, the MS, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda said two dinim. One, ruba kekula, and two, the shchita has to be in two places. Either roiv in the tabas gedola, or roiv what in between the in between. It has to be like or in between in the other tabais.
You're saying that Ruba Kufula is a complaint saved on something that's physiological?
No, you could say on something physiological. We could say it.
But you're saying only an action.
Right.
The action.
In this case, the action, right? But yeah, we can't create a kana if it's not, if it's not there. If it's not there. So nachama.
Separating it in between you hitting the kana.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's why. And then when you cut, let's say my fingers, right? Let's say my fingers are covering, this is the kana. So if you shecht in between, you're getting the kana. But if you shecht there, you're not getting the kana. It's Rashi's so clear. Really, maybe because I saw the book with the Rashi, but whatever it is, it's very, very clear. It's geschmack. Okay, anyway. Fred Gemara, ubishar tabois loy. If you shecht, it's you shecht and shar tabois not. But Tanya, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says, I'm a base. Hashoichet b'shar tabois. Someone who shechts b'shar tabois. Af al pi she'ei makifos es kol hakana. That's Rashi's raya. Even though they're not mark of the whole kana, so you see that the kana is what they're covering. Hoyel umakifos es roiv hakana. Since it's mark of the majority of the kana, shchitas k'sheira. It's a kasha. It's a kasha. So okay, so that's one question on Rav and Shmuel. The Brisa continues. Umagremes psula, and Rashi says afilu ruba b'toichet habas. Even if you get roiv in toichet habas, umiyutu l'mayla mitabas hagedoyla umilsa b'apei nafshi v'stamu rabbanon. In other words, and if you shecht in tabas gedoyla, guys, if you shecht in tabas gedoyla and you only get roiv, that's not enough. In other words, that's the din of the chum of the Mishnah. We're saying a brisa. We're saying different clauses. So the first clause is what? The first clause is that if you shecht in the middle of it's okay. If you shecht the other tabais, it's okay. If you shecht in the tabas gedayla, you better get the whole thing and not roiv. And now, and we didn't answer. You got the kasha already, guys, because it says that what? That if you shecht b'shat tabais, it's good. Finishing off the brisa. Hey, Reb Chanina ben Atignis al mugremes shehi kshera. It was made on a mugremes that it's kasha. Rashi, you know what kind of mugremes? Afilu kula lemayla min atabas gedoyla. Even in Gans, it's above. Right. V'chi agmi rachmona hagrama halach l'maysh misinai mishipua koiva ulemayla agminon. V'hachi hilchasa. And this is what is the halacha. And this is the halacha. Where do we have this baruch? Not yet. That's earlier. Okay, this shita, guys, is even if you shecht the whole thing above the tabas hagedoyla, it will be a good shchita. Even if you shecht above, that's the edus what of Reb Chanina ben Antignis. Okay, fellas, this is I don't want to spend time on this now, but this is the halacha that even if you shecht outside the tabas gedoyla, you're in the koiva, but as long as it's not past the point where the koiva ascends, that's still a kasha shchita. That's not the kasha. The kasha is, you see from this brisa that you shecht in the other tabois, it's good. You see in the shecht in the other tabois, it is good. Says and for the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yosef by Yehuda Tartikam. I said two things. Rav Ushmuel Savakavase Bechada regarding Roiv in the Tabas Gedaila, Upligale Bechada, and they argue on the other one, right? He said that even the other tabois you can shecht, and they said in the other tabois you can't shecht. If you look at the Lashon, guys, look at back page on page Yudches. Rabbi Shmuel Amit Shavai Allah Rabbi Yosef Yehuda after Rabbi Yosef Yehuda loy Omar El Tabas Gedaila. In other words, they're saying what Rabbi Yosef Yehuda is saying. You're telling me to argue, but the Lashon's mashma that what? The Lashon's mashma, they're repeating what Rabbi Yosef Yehuda said. So how can you say that? He said, Fred the Gemara Volay Amakami, Hachi Kamar, Halacha Kamaisle B'Tabas Gedaila, the Ein Halacha Kamaisle B'Shar Tabois. And but Halacha is not like him by Shar Tabois. So Shar Tabois, what would be? Shar Tabois would be, according to Rabbi Yosef Yehuda, would be good. What?
1596. Like
What?
that it?
Yeah.
The Lamed Ted.
Yeah. That's what we said. According to Rabbi Yosef Yehuda, that would be kasha. Yeah, according to Rabbi Yosef Yehuda, that would be kasha. Okay. Okay, says the Gemara. Kisalik Reb Zera, when Reb Zera went up to Eretz Yisrael, Achom Mugremes the Rabbi Shmuel. He ate what Rabbi Shmuel considered a Mugremes, meaning a non-kosher shechita, because it's what the shechita was between the other tabois, not between on the tabois, and he ate it. So Amalei, they said to Reb Zera, Lav me asrei the Rabbi Shmuelat. Are you not from what? The place of what? Of Rav and Shmuel? Are you not the place of Rav and Shmuel? And therefore you should be knowing that they're halacha mugremes. Amalahu, man amra, who said that Rav and Shmuel argue on Rabbi Yosef Yehuda? It was Rabbi Yosef Bechia. It was Rabbi Yosef Bechia who said that, meaning that's the famous Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef Bechia Kuli Alma Gamar. He learned from a lot of people. No, he learned from a lot of people, and therefore what? And Rashi, Shema Shama Dava Mi Piacher, Shlei Dig B'Dvarim, K'may Shama. No, he didn't fold it with such a reliable source. Shama Rabbi Yossi, who was in Bavel, heard this Ikbin. He was makbid. He was makbid. Okay, let's see Rashi. Let's see Taisus, guys. Yossi Rabbi Yechia Mikuli Alma Gamar Klaimar Like Shama Me Rav Shmuel. He didn't hear it from Rav Shmuel. Since he heard from Umasha Ein Oichlin Oisa Bim Kaimai Chumer Ba'almahu. And that's that they didn't eat it. It's a Chumer Ba'alma. V'le'al Pi Rav Shmuel. Good. So in other words, guys, Taisus is learning why did Reb Zera eat it. Let's go through it. If Rav and Shmuel had given a psak clearly, got a shchita done between one of the the tabois, Reb Zera would not have eaten it. He wouldn't have eaten it because we got the psak from Rav and Shmuel. Who reported this psak? Who reported it? Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi Yehuda, he learned by a lot of people. So that he learned by a lot of people is not that he heard it directly from Rav and Shmuel. Memela, therefore I can eat it. Good? Therefore I can eat it. That's the way Taisus explains the Gemara. That's the dialogue between them. That's why I can eat it. Now, the Gemara now asks that didn't you come from Bavel? And Taisus says, good, you didn't hear it from Rav and Shmuel. But in the place in Bavel, they were noig Yisr. And aren't you noig the chumrah of the place you're coming from? Aren't you noig the chumrah of the place you're coming from? That's what he's asking him. So now the Gemara says what the Gemara says. So Rabbi Yosef, I learned from everybody, and I'm not medagdik. I learned from Yehuda, who was a Talmud of Rav and Shmuel. That Philus Sveiki the Gavri Goris. He when he learned, he even said over the lashon of Suffolk. Dam Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Yemia Barabba Suffolk Mishmei the Rav Suffolk Mishmei the Shmuel. So therefore, what? Okay, Shloisha. What's the suffix? Shloisha Matim Nesa Bechor b'Makam Shein Mumcha. In a place Matim Bechor that you can eat it b'Medina, and not, even you don't need a mumcha, you can bring 3 people. Now, Fred the Gemara, this is what Taisus brings in. Reb Zera, Leslie, Noisin of Chumrei Amakim Sheyatzim Misham, V'Chumrei Amakim Shehalach L'Sham. Okay, says the Gemara, Rabbi, Hani Mili Mi Bavel Bavel, Ume Eretz Yisrael, Inami Meretz Yisrael Bavel. In those cases, then you have to be knowing the chumrah of the place that you're coming from and the chumrah of the place you're going to, because they were all equal, or you ascended. Avmi Bavel Eretz Yisrael, where you descended, Kivin the Anon Kafinan lay. Since what we are subsidiary, Kafinan lay. Avdina Kavasayu. Therefore, what we do like the Bnei Eretz Yisrael. Let's see Rashi. The Kivin the Anon Kafinalu, when the lines get wide, about 10 lines up. Kivin from the bottom line. Kivin the Anon Kafinanle, the Bnei Eretz Yisrael, the Kiddush HaChodesh. Since we are dependent upon Bnei Eretz Yisrael, we're dependent upon regarding Kiddush HaChodesh, Shana, and regarding making a leap year. Since we're dependent upon them for this, Kedamina b'shmaitza basra dehorius, uladina knasa she'ein smicha b'bavel, and therefore avdina kavasayu ki azlina gabayu. When we come to them, then we go ahead and we do like them. And therefore we don't have to give cover to our place that we're coming from. In other words, guys, the reason you know the chumrah of the place you're coming from is to give cover to the place that you're coming from. But since I'm coming to a place that is more higher, because we're subsidiary and dependent upon them, you don't have to go ahead and give covet from that place. And Rebzei was eating in Eretz Yisrael. And Rebzei was eating in Eretz Yisrael. Guys, good? Okay. Continues the Gemara. Rashi Amar Afilu Tema mi Babel Eretz Yisrael. Rashi can say that even from Babel to Eretz Yisrael, you don't have to be noig the. From Babel to Eretz Yisrael, you don't have to be noig the chumrah. Hani mili heiche de daite lachsa. You know when you have to be noig the chumrah when your das is to go back. Reb Zera ain't daite lachsa have. Reb Zera is not das, not lachsa. This is the Gemara is the simon for eating 1 day yontif or 2 day yontif. This is the Sven Mekaimis. 1 day yontif, 2 day yontif, right? Yeah. Amalei Abayil Rav Yosef. V'Rabbanan da'asim Mechuza Amri. The Rabbanan who came from Mechuza Amri, right? They came from Mechuza. What does the Bach say? Mishmei de Rav Nachman. Okay, taking the words out of Reb Zera. Mugremes Kshera. The Mugremes of Rabbi Mishmuel is kosher in Bavel, right? You know, the Bnei Bavel were noig chumrah fellas, but it's not the minig. In other words, they were noig in Bavel. You're basically you're giving Rav Zera a tough time. You're saying Rav Zera, this was the minig in Bavel. They this magrumta, this shchita that took place in the tabas that wasn't the bas gedola is not good, right? And therefore, you had to go get fatayich. Well, therefore, the minig, says the Gemara, in Bavel, Gufa, there were places that were what? Was kasha. So it's not a kasha. Mm-hmm. So Amalei, so Rav Yosef told Rav Abaya, Naharu Pashte. You have a river and a river, they go in different directions. Says Rashi, Naharu Pashte, Kol Nar Mispashte b'makam shu ragel sham. Every Nahar it spreads out from the place that it's accustomed. Klaimar, Kol makam holach achim in Hagai, Istuchte b'babel dinai Rav Shmuel, Istuchte d'loinai kavasayu. Each one goes according to what they do. Okay, we'll stop over here.